of housekeeping. We are having a Q&A session at the end. If you'd like to pick up on a point, by all means, put your virtual hand up, and whoever's speaking will take the questions at the time. Just another housekeeping matter. If you wouldn't mind being on mute until such times as you've raised a question, I just think it'll keep the general background noise down. And in line with our emergency response, which is a big thing for us in IJUBOA, our plan is if things freeze, we're going to the cupboard, we're going to unplug the router, plug it back in, and ask you all to log back in again. But hopefully that won't be possible. That won't happen. Okay. So thanks for joining again today. As Sophie said, a little bit about the history of IJUBOA for any of those who aren't familiar. IJUBOA was founded in 2008 at a meeting in Bristol, which the HSE and MCA were keen for us to have. They wanted the jack-up industry to be as self-regulating as possible due to resource within the HSE and MCA. We as operators at the time thought that was a good idea, so we formed the association. The BWA guidelines have just been written by London Offshore Consulting. We adopted those as a code of practice, and with the aim that we were going to measure against that in terms of companies' accreditation and how we went about the safe use of jack-up barges. Since 2008, we've tried to continually develop IJUBOA and improve IJUBOA, and as we like to say, raise the bar. So it's not just the health and safety bar, it's the cultural bar as well. And we've made quite a few changes of late, and we're really excited to be at the point now where we can provide corporate membership to the industry, which we thank you again for joining today and your time. Hopefully run through the benefits today of joining IJUBOA. Just to go to, so the membership structure as is right now and as we're moving to. So the full members of IJUBOA are the operators, the jack-up operator companies, both offshore and nearshore. The second existing membership is the associate membership. This is companies working in and around the jack-up operators in industry, such as crewing agencies, training companies, brokers, classing societies, etc. They've been established many years now, since 2008. And obviously the other existing membership is the honorary membership. That's MCA, HSE, they keep a keen eye on what we're doing, as well as IMCA is somewhere we're moving closer to with IMCA and developing our relationship, which we'll hear more of from Bas later on. And then BPA, the British Sports Authority, the Workboat Association, are all good associations which we share common goals with. So that's the association as is with the membership. This year we've introduced two exciting new membership classes. One is the individual membership, which comes from the Blue Book, and the very exciting app now that's developing from the Blue Book. That's come through a grant from Trinity House, which John Howard achieved, which is a great piece of work, and we're working, as you'll hear, with the Nautical Institute and Swift Track to get the Blue Book online. And last but not least, the corporate membership. That's why we're here today. We want to spread across the industry. You know, we want to bring in port authorities. We want to bring in Tier 1 contractors, specialists, Tier 2 contractors, and consulting engineers. Someone's making a little bit of a noise there, so you wouldn't mind to mute that, please. Yeah, so I said Tier 1, Tier 2 contractors, consulting engineers. So basically spreading across the industry with making more information available to more people, and with the goal to keep raising the bar. So today, if I could just introduce the structure of IJUBOA, the committee structure. So we have the 4 voting members of IJUBOA there at the top: myself, Bastien from Combifloat, Les Love from Fugro, and Benny Pasuta from Herbal Spear. Could you mute that person? Sorry about that. And then the two non-voting members of IJUBOA are Ian O'Connor. Ian's the director of IJUBOA. He's been a stalwart from day one with us. Ian's audit subject matter expert and reviews everything that comes into IJUBOA with a view, then puts it forward to the committee for voting. And then talking of stalwarts, Sophie Wilcox taken on the administration of IJUBOA. She's company secretary, and most of you will receive lots of correspondence from her on a regular basis. And she's also a director of IJUBOA. So that's us as a team. We are looking for a couple of new committee members, so be prepared. The agenda. So today, Ian is going to talk about our accreditation system, the companies, the full member companies that are accredited, and the tiering system that we're pushing forward and developing. Buster Young is going to talk about our relationship with IMCA and how we're looking to develop that. Les will talk about the general benefits of joining IJUBOA as a corporate member. Sophie will talk to you about future industry events. And Benny will talk to you about our AGM and a little bit about what we've done in AGMs in the past. We're really pleased to invite guest speakers, Patrick McDaniel from SwiftTrack. Patrick's done extensive amount of work in getting the Blue Book online. We'll be really excited to tell you about that today. John Lloyd from the Nautical Institute. John's joining us. The Nautical Institute, huge organisation. They're verifying the facts within the Blue Book. So as the barge masters record their experience, that's verified not just by the company supervisors, but also by the Nautical Institute itself, which gives it a lot of gravitas. John will talk to you a bit about that and potential for CPD points for when you come and share days like today with us or courses. Talking of courses, Mark Hayward is going to talk to you about the manager's course, very much as I see one of our jewels in the crown together with the Blue Book. Manager's course, my certificate on the wall was 2011, did it down in Fugo's offices in Cornwall with LOC, long time ago. It's proved its test of time. There's hundreds of people been through it, and we would like to certainly get more corporate members through the course. We see it's huge. It's a 2-day course, and Mark will talk to you a bit more detail about that. And he'll also run through on the lessons learned. There's been some, unfortunately, as early as last week, or recent as last week, there was industry, there was jack-ups in the headlines in the industry for the wrong reasons. And Mark will certainly share some more distant lessons learned on that. I'll do the wrap up at the end and take some questions from the floor. So thanks for that. If I may hand over to you, Sophie, to introduce perhaps the next speakers.
Yeah, so just a few housekeeping rules before we start. During the presentation, if you've got any questions throughout, if you could use the raise hand tool, we'll try our best to answer them throughout the presentation. But if not, as Nick said, we've got some designated time at the end for questions if you'd prefer to wait until then. So I'll hand over to Ian O'Connor now, who's going to talk about our accreditation system.
Thank you, Sophie. Good morning, everybody. What I'm going to run through in a brief introduction is the accreditation system that IJUBOA has developed over a number of years now, and many of our current members take part in the system, and it is there to try and meet and achieve the 3 goals that IJUBOA was originally set up around. Those being to promote a safe industry for the people and the environment and society at large, to promote a learning industry, and we improve and increase the professional workforce and the skill set within the industry, and to promote a well-run industry as well, and that we can actually go forward to our clients and actually demonstrate that our operating systems are meeting the current health and safety and environmental guidelines and best practice. So the accreditation system has been in place since around about 2013-14, and various members have taken part in the system. Now, the system is open to the full members, so they would be people that are operators or are operating jack-up barges, directly or via a charter, and where they would actually deliver work on site using the jack-up barge. It is a two-stage system, and if we look on the slide here, we break down to two different types of barges that we have in the industry, which we would class as an offshore barge first of all. Many of these are larger units that would require some form of ISM certification. A lot of those barges on the market may be self-propelled, and their accreditation system itself is already in place with that ISM certification and third-party auditing via the likes of Lloyd's Register, GL, etc. What we also have within our membership is the nearshore barges, which fall outside of that certification route. The current position for these barges is that there is no direct accreditation scheme for the operation of these types of barges. So we've developed the self-assessment tool and the code of practice, which in essence is the ISM certification system, but it's adapted to the smaller type of jack-up barge. So there are various sections within the ISM which aren't relevant, which we have removed, and then we've written a full internal IJUBOA document known as the code of practice, which gives us a standard to measure members and operators against. Now, to go in for the self-assessment tool and the audit process, we split it into two different sections. As you see here, we have a silver standard and a gold standard. Now, all companies that join IJUBOA as a full member, so as an operator, are asked to complete the desktop study. And this is all part of the initial stage of coming into IJUBOA. The initial route is for a self-assessment to be done based around our self-assessment tool. This is a question set which is based around the ISO standards and the ISM standard as well. And it covers such items as safety policy, responsibilities. We do introduce a role of a designated person, very similar to the DPA role. Responsibilities of the barge master, what resources you use, operational activities on board, emergency preparedness, which is a very strong theme within IJUBOA, non-conformances, how they're dealt with, maintenance, documentation and verification. So those are the 11 stages or the 11 paragraphs that we go through within the tool itself. And at the silver level, the desktop study level, we ask the member to complete the form with the relevant evidence, very similar to a construction line application, which you may be familiar with, or a UVD verify system. It's very similar to that. And we ask for that evidence to be sent in to IJUBOA. Myself would review that information based on what's sent in. We may ask for more evidence, but once that evidence is in place and we can see that there is a management structure and a management system which meets the code of practice, then the member is awarded that silver status at that point in time. Now, it is then down to the company whether they wish to then go to the stage 2. For the stage 2, which is the external verification audit, this stage requires attendance by a subject matter expert for the type of jack-up operations that you carry out, and it would also be attended by an auditor via a third party, such as DMV or GL, for example. At this stage, the evidence that's already been submitted would be reviewed either at your offices or, if possible, arranged on site, and we would actually go through the practical implementation of the management system and also carry out interviews with key people such as your designated persons, your operations team, your barge masters and crew, to get an understanding of how you actually manage your actual activities on site, and that the management system that you have put through at stage 1 is actually being put into place at stage 2 with further evidence. Once that report has been completed and it goes through to the executive committee for approval, then that company can be awarded the gold standard at that point, and that gold standard is held following ongoing reviews and a 5-year audit cycle. So as we said, it's not necessarily down to companies that they do need to go for that higher standard, but it is there to demonstrate that they've gone that extra mile. And from an IJUBOA point of view, what we're looking at there is trying to raise the bar and trying to make sure that the industry is constantly moving forward. As far as help with the system, IJUBOA are very open to helping companies to achieve the standard. Excuse me. And if we can assist in any way with the self-assessment tool, type of evidence required, processes and procedures and feedback, that is part of the IJUBOA role to assist our members and help as much as we can to get them to the right standard. So it is quite a flexible system. I said it's open to all people that operate in barges currently or are operators within our membership. And the aim is to raise the standard within the industry and to give to companies such as some of the people here today that bring on jack-up barges onto their sites. It's quite an important thing to look at the management system that is in place, and the IJUBOA system and the accreditation tool gives you that sort of comfort that they have actually been assessed to a standard which is compliant with the ISM standard you would find on a vessel. So that gets me to the end of my part of this presentation. I'm happy to take questions later on, and I'll pass back to Sophie for the next slide.
Thanks, Ian. So I'll now hand over to Bastien, who's going to talk about our relationship with IMCA.
Thank you, Sophie. Good morning, everybody. About 13 years ago, IJUBOA was established, and a lot of work has been done with a limited number of people over the years, bringing us to where we are today. IMCA or IJUBOA today is, as the committee has phrased it themselves, in a sort of survival mode, if you like. Following the death of John. At the same time, we realize that in order to be able to achieve all the goals that have been set by IJUBOA, there is a desperate need to increase the membership base and become a truly international organization. The goals that have been set by IJUBOA are underlined by basically all players in the industry. In order to get a broader recognition for these goals and get more possibilities to achieve the goals, it is of utmost importance to increase the membership base. So for those who have joined us during this session, and at the end of the session underline and agree and endorse the goals set by IJUBOA, please do take your responsibility and do become a member. To become a more international player, it is important that we get that we team up with an organization that has a true international base already. And the organization to help us there is actually the IMCA. IMCA is an organization operating on all continents, having regional chapters, and truly take care and represent the various activities in the marine environment. They have a very professional administrative infrastructure and a truly broad membership base. It will be the ideal vehicle for us to become more international by getting access to all their members and giving us the opportunity to have them share the goals that we have set as IJUBOA, which are basically not much different than the ones that have been set by IMCA. The discussions that we have opened up with IMCA have just recently started. We are in the initial stages of introducing ourselves, and IMCA has in principle opened the doors for us to do further presentations in order to give IMCA a better access and a better insight in the IJUBOA organization. We will shortly issue a letter to IMCA outlining all the various goals that we are trying to achieve, and following that letter, initial meeting with the CEO of IMCA will be scheduled. Again, it is important for IJUBOA to become more international and truly international, and the right vehicle for us to help us is the IMCA. This brings us to the end of my presentation here. So, Sophie, if you're ready to introduce the next speaker.
Thanks for that, Bas. So I'll hand over to Les Lugg now, who's going to talk you through further the benefits of joining as a corporate member.
Thanks, Sophie. Good morning, everyone. So the benefits of joining as a corporate member. So if you elect to become a corporate member, which we obviously hope you will, what can IJUBOA give you access to? Well, as you've heard from Nick, IJUBOA was formed in order to raise the health and safety and operational standards, as well as providing training and awareness within the industry related to nearshore and coastal jack-up barge operations. And most of you today are here because you're either active or interested in jack-up barge operations as part of your works, either directly or indirectly. So why become a corporate member? Sophie, if you can go on to the next slide, please. So most importantly, starting off with health and safety, we've all got that commitment to health and safety, and hopefully that's why you're here today. And at IJUBOA, the safety of jack-up operations was and still is our founding principle and the cornerstone of IJUBOA's creation back in 2008. And that's to make the jack-up barge industry safer. So as a corporate member of IJUBOA, your company can demonstrate that it's part of IJUBOA's commitment towards health and safety in terms of its jack-up barge operations and your operations as a project and as a company. You'll be given the opportunity to attend IJUBOA Safety Days, whereby best practice is shared amongst members. We engage in safety forums and the opportunity to ensure that when you are involved in jack-up barge operations, you're asking the right questions when you're looking at different jack-ups or different jack-up companies that you wish to engage with. So we're essentially giving you those tools to operate at a safer level. Backing that up is training and development. So IJUBOA also provide crucial access to training and development in the safe use and best practice concerning jack-up barge operations and management. And a good example of this is the Jack-Up Barge Managers course, which is a 2-day workshop that you'll hear a little bit more about later on from Mark. So access to training provided by IJUBOA is about providing you, our corporate members, with training and access to that knowledge of minimum operating standards that you should be expecting from your jack-up supplier, or putting those standards in place within your company yourselves to ensure that your projects have the best chance of safety and success. And we're also aiming within the training and development arena to work with our honorary members to ensure that these courses that we're putting on contribute to continued professional development by means of CPD points. And there's best practice guidelines and technical support. So again, as a corporate member of IJUBOA, you will have access to, and IJUBOA will provide, backed up by these training and development opportunities I've just talked about, signposts to minimum safe practice guidelines when operating, chartering, or engaging in jack-up operations. And these will be guidance notes such as ensuring that the right jack-up selection is made for the application that's needed to be carried out, the payloads, the loadings on the jack-ups that are accurately calculated, site-specific assessments of the wave, current, seabed conditions are undertaken, all essentially to ensure that the right jack-up is selected for the right purpose and managed in the appropriate manner. And also we'll be covering, and you'll have access to, guidelines of safe manning, safe crew transfer, appropriate crew transfer, and access and egress as well. And finally, I think network days, industry days, promotion of industry collaboration and opportunity for networking amongst owners, operators, suppliers, and industry experts are just another one of those benefits to becoming a corporate member of IJUBOA. And so during virtual and hopefully in the future face-to-face industry days and networking opportunities, we can meet, share lessons learned, and discuss industry topics, and all this with a view of sharing that knowledge and spreading that best practice across the industry. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a feel for what you can get access to, hopefully if you do elect to become a corporate member. And so I'll hand over to Sophie now, who will talk just a little bit more about those future events and the networking opportunities. Thank you.
Thanks, Les. So yeah, in terms of the future events we're looking to hold, the second is our lessons learned, which is going to be held in July. And this is an opportunity for committee members to present on a particular topic or event that's taken place within their business. And within the session, we're going to dive into the challenges, the solutions, and the outcomes of that event. And we think that lessons learned is one of the most powerful tools that we can use in the industry and really influences the health and safety culture. Mark Hayward from DNV later is going to touch on some incidents that have shocked our industry and the importance of raising that safety bar. So we think that'll be a really interesting one for our members to attend. The third event is industry topic. So this is going to be held in September. And this is really where we want to draw from you the challenges that you face when chartering a jack-up, the pinch points, and where your team could use some extra support. So we want your suggestions, and we'll then put together a presentation and topic day around that. And these will then hopefully also influence our best practice guidelines that we'll be developing with IMCA. So the fourth event is emergency response. So this will be a designated day to emergency response planning, and we'll walk you through a scenario, the roles and responsibilities of all the people involved, and hopefully you'll come away from the day feeling more prepared and be able to reflect and review your approach to emergency response planning. So the final event is our AGM, which we're hoping to hold in December in person, and I'll hand over to Benny de Sutter, who's going to talk to you more about this.
Hello, Benny. Are you there? Okay, I'll pick up from Benny. And
good morning. Sorry, my micro was on. It's clear. Good morning. The last AGMs which we have executed have been in Berlin in 2019, and the year before 18 was in Mallorca. Normally it's a two-day event where we do an afternoon meeting normally to discuss the activities and the results that the association has been achieving in the year with all the needed information and discussions. We also do look for interesting guest speakers. On the last AGM Berlin, we had Christoph Wellendorf present from FNZ, BO, a German company, who explained to us the use of jackups in the Baltic Sea. We always have a nice socializing dinner event, and the day afterwards we do half-day social activities so that people can have a networking time with their colleagues in the industry. Maybe just to come back, in 2018 we had a similar event in Mallorca. There we had invited also very interesting guest speakers from HWS Towers. They had a very inventive way of building cranes on offshore constructions. I think, yeah, the AGMs are working. It's an event that people in the industry look forward to meet each other again. And well, now that the COVID hopefully issue is passing soon, we want to organize, as Sophie explained, on the 2nd of December, a new event, a new AGM. We want to do it a little bit modest still, because with the COVID still going on a little bit, the discussions are going on, decisions have not been made, but maybe we think to do it this year in London or Amsterdam. And I don't know, maybe we can discuss at the end in the questions and answers. If people have some suggestions, they are always welcome. We will consider them. The pictures you see is from the evening event we had in Mallorca on a show, which was very good, by the way. I would like to thank you.
Thanks, Benny. So moving on now, I'm going to introduce our first guest speaker. So Patrick McDaniel is from SwiftTrack, and he's been working with us over the past few months and the past year on the development of our Blue Book. So the Blue Book was originally a hard copy where barge masters filled in their experience whilst working away on jack-up barges. So now we've been turning that into an app with a grant from Trinity House, and I'll let Patrick explain a little bit more about the platform.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, I'll just introduce you to what we've come up with in terms of supporting this application. So basically, it is to try and move away from the requirement to have a paper-based version and look for a system which we can put online that will allow people to collect and store data relevant to their work that they're undertaking dynamically wherever they are in the world. So the SwiftTrack system allows us to have a mechanism for recording their work experience, maintaining their training records. It also allows us the opportunity for verification of those records, both at the level of a company level, but also it allows opportunities for verification independently, as linked to, for example, the Nautical Institute, potentially being able to look at the system and check that things are recorded accurately and are appropriate. So the system will be set up such that at different levels where we have companies will be established with a presence on the site, and with the companies they will have barge masters associated with them, etc., and mentors and assessors who are obviously important in terms of sign off of the competencies of the work undertaken. So what you've got there are there's two just before we go on, Sophie, just hold just a second. The left-hand image is of the sign-in to the system, so that's as it would appear on your mobile device. So the system is enabled that it will work on any web-enabled mobile device. So it could be a phone, it could be a tablet or laptop, etc. Now, the Blue Book, the interface then on the right-hand side, this is the in effect the dashboard that you will land on. So I'm logging, in this case, I've logged in as Fred, and you'll see there are several little buttons that provide us access to the different facilities that appear within the app. We have a C service, which is, I will demonstrate in a minute, which allows us to add the C service based on dates, based on location, etc. We have an experience log, which is a record of the work being undertaken that you're recording. The training record is a facility for adding your certificates, your competencies, etc. A progress review is the facility for your mentor, your company, or your external mentor to be able to feed back to you on what you've done and how you've done it, and whether there's any requirement for further work, etc. We have in the system also the ability to add resources. So it's possible that we can have either company specific learning resources added to the app, or we can have IJUBOA general resources added to the app, which would be accessible wherever the individual was accessing the system. And then finally, the button there is the progress. So that's the ability to sort of look at where you are, a summary of what you've added to the system. So, right, Sophie, we'll go on. I think I've got to take over now, haven't I?
Yeah, so I'll just stop sharing my screen so that you can share your video recording.
Okay, so just if I share this, what I've prepared for you just briefly is the experience that someone would have in terms of adding data to the system. So here it is, it's set up on my mobile phone in effect. So I'm going to play it and run through the experience, and I'll try and describe the system as we see it. So I'm logging in, I've got my password, I've got my username, and that is secure for the individual. Here I'm onto my dashboard, and what I'm going to be doing is adding a record, a C service. So this is directly relevant to what you would do with your current paper-based version. I'm selecting the barge, and barges will have been added to the system relevant to the individual companies. So here I've got one from Red 7. I've then added the dates, and what it's giving me now is a record that I was working on Red 7.3 for those dates. I then add the description to what I've done. An important part of it also is linking to the ability to add the number of barge moves that you've done as part of that particular process. So I add my activity. So you'll see there that what I've got is that I was working London Port Authority installation of mooring facilities in the Thames Estuary, Greenwich. I was barge master in charge, and as part of that period work, I did 5 moves. Obviously, in addition to that, you can add more detail depending on what the requirement is in terms of the work undertaken, etc. So that is that's how the system works in very simple terms. It's designed to be as user-friendly as possible and simple to use. So if I stop sharing, Sophie, if you can share again, we can just look at the final slide. So coming back to then a couple of other features, I mentioned the verification of the process. So if you, on the left-hand screen, you'll see there that I've got an addition to the C service record, which gives the details that I was working on from the 13th to the 17th of April. Now, if you notice at the bottom, that record has been verified by a verifier. So Fred, the candidate, I've looked at that record and I'm happy that that was a genuine input to the system. So that's how it appears in the system in terms of the sign off, so equivalent to what you find in your conventional blue book. And then interestingly, on the right hand side, your training record. So here it's just visualizing. I've got a couple of examples there. So proficiency in advanced firefighting, for example, and fast rescue boats. In the system, these would be preloaded, so depending on the barge, where you are operating, what the certification requirements are, linked to the MCA or other equivalent organisation, linked to the HSE. Your certificates, there would be a requirement for the barge masters to add their detail. Now, what it enables them to do is to add evidence of their advanced firefighting. So they would be a copy of their certificate uploaded. And in addition to that, there would be the identification number, and the date that's showing there says that's the expiry date. So the system will then, as part of a ongoing mechanism for sort of controlling training within your companies, is, so for example, the MCA tickets will last for 5 years. Within 4.5 years in, we will set a time and it will say, ping Fred an email and say your certificate is up in 6 months, you need to renew it. So that's a feature that sits within the system. So a whistle stop tour, hopefully it's given you a bit of an insight to what the Blue Book will look like once it's gone online. Hopefully it's going to be of interest to you. Thank you. Questions at the end, I presume.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick. That's really good. Just to add to that, Patrick, we have now developed a route map to training, which the Blue Book or the app actually caters for. Isn't that the case? So basically, someone entering the industry or wanting to retrain in the industry can basically follow the route map through various milestones to the point where, as Les described, the Barge Master course, that they are then in a position to sit the Barge Master course and have an independent pass out in effect. So the Blue Book and the app does two things. It caters for the experienced Barge Master, but it also caters for the training route map for new people.
Yeah, I mean, the facility is there for allowing individuals who are what I've demonstrated is the system where you are a qualified barge master, you're experienced, etc. So for those individuals that want to become the barge master, there's another facility which we would switch on within the system that would allow the individual to provide evidence of competence as they develop as a barge master, a record which is again verifiable by the company and externally, would link into the conventional courses which support the development of a barge master, and would sort of provide that route map from being a new recruit through to being a qualified barge master. So that is there, but we haven't got the time to look at that today, but it's something for the future.
And this is something that basically IJUBOA in continuing to raise the bar and continuing to improve what it offers. I mean, in the past we've offered the Barge Master course that can be equated to a driving test in effect, but what candidates are looking for is the car and the instructor to bring them through the process so that they can then get to the driving test date. So again, this is something IJUBOA have developed. This is relatively new and something we're particularly proud of, but it's part of the continuing improvement of the system and the raising of the bar. So thanks, Patrick. That's been really good, and it would be great to have gone on to the route map, but we are limited on time. So thank you again.
Okay, no problems.
Right, I'll hand over to our second guest speaker now. So we've got John Lloyd from the Nautical Institute, and I will stop sharing my screen so you can share your presentation, John.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sophie. And thank you for the opportunity of joining you all today. It's nice to see you, and I'd like to share a few words about the Nautical Institute and how we can work with you on the Blue Book. Can I just confirm that you can see what you need to see? Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. So I'm John Lloyd, Chief Executive of the Nautical Institute. I've been with the organisation about 6 years. So We're committed to professional development, and it's about making sure that our mariners, your workers, everybody in the community is capable for the future. And I think it's important to recognise that that is around investing in the individuals in a range of disciplines, their personal skills, their life skills, and also their technical skills. And we are the leading professional body for people in control of ships, so we've got a bit of a presence there, and we offer our support through a range of media, including our monthly technical journal Seaways, and a Navigator magazine, which is particularly focused on trying to bring young people into the conversation. As well as those journals, we have a range of publications as well, and one that's particularly relevant to this sector, of course, is the DP operators handbook, but a range of other things as well, particularly for managers and people in charge of operations. So for us, the whole thing is about developing professionals and delivering that lifelong learning opportunity, and I think that does start. It only starts with those base level qualifications, whether they're STCW or other industry qualifications, but then further training and certifications such as dynamic positioning operators, and I'll talk in a moment about where we sit in that field. But it is around supporting that culture and that need for continuing professional development. So many of you may already know the Nautical Institute from our DPO certification activities, that they are very important to us, that they're something we've been doing for 30 odd years now. And we particularly recognise that not all DP vessels are the same, and how you gain that experience and show that experience for the award of a DP certificate needs to be tailored to particular requirements. And a couple of years ago, we worked with the sector on identifying how we could ensure that those working in the what the Americans might call lift boats, but the jack-up barge operations, and so we tailored our scheme to recognise that the way you gain experience in the sector is different to somebody working in a supply boat or a dive support vessel and so on. So we do have a pathway there that is then identified specifically for jack-up vessels, and I think that's been quite a useful step forward. We're really looking forward to finalising the arrangements in which we will provide the independent verification. I'll come back to that in a moment, but I wanted to give a bit of global context. That there are about 26,500 DP certificates out there worldwide. Around 26,000 of those are actually run and managed by the Nautical Institute. So we have a good record of what the supply and demand is like. The blue lines are about initial certification, and then the red lines are those people that have revalidated. You can imagine that in 2020, accessing training centres was very difficult. We did put some arrangements in place that training could take place online, but a huge amount of activity in terms of revalidation. So we're able to see where those DPOs are coming from, what nationality they are, how that supply and demand is varying, and giving the assurances, or at least the information to the industry of who's where and how well qualified they are. And it's not about the Nautical Institute making it up itself. What we do is to administer on behalf of the industry, which develops an industry standard that we then comes to the Nautical Institute, and our role is to monitor, implement, and ensure compliance with what the industry has said it wants. And so we have a group, we have an industry consultation group to help us in that. We create a standard which we share with every training centre. It's on our website for everybody to read, but then we do have a responsibility for ensuring that that compliance is in place, and this gives a uniform global approach to how we look after qualifications and so on. In the context of working with IJUBOA, we've been working for a long time in discussions. We were delighted that Ian came over to Rotterdam for a global conference that we were holding there. But our particular role is providing the validation process to the IJUBOA Blue Book entries. I think having that independent validation and verification of the evidence that is being presented truly adds value. It isn't. It goes beyond the self-declaration and provides an oversight and a support to give you, the people employing the operators, that evidence is genuine, that it has been verified, and that you can rely on it when deciding on your employment decisions. So that's the formality bit of it, and we look forward to that being finalised. And I think the other thing is about working with you to create that environment where people have got a culture of wanting to develop themselves through continuing professional development, that recognises their individual commitment, that they are the right people to be supporting through their careers, and putting that into a measurable structure through the award of CPD points, but very much individually led, but then used as a source of reference for potential employment in the future. And we will work on the detail of that as to how that can be delivered, what events and development should achieve different levels of award, and then how it should be recorded and presented to prospective employers. So that's a little snapshot of how we're looking forward to working together. My name and email is on the screen there. Very happy to take any questions either by email or later on in this session. So thank you, Sophie.
Thank you very much, John. So I'll hand over now to Mark Hayward from DNV, who's going to talk to you a bit more about our managers course. So I'll grab up your presentation, Mark.
Thank you, Sophie. So good morning. It's still just morning, so thank you for this. References to the managers course. I won't pretend that we invented it. We've been working with IJUBOA for a number of years, I think since 2014, when we stepped in to fill LOC's boots in this. It was obviously prepared originally by them, and it's an ongoing development. We try and keep the managers course relevant, up to date, pertinent to industry challenges, industry changes across the different sectors, both oil and gas, construction, and importantly renewables. The key objective is to improve and maintain that awareness and understanding of risks associated with jack-up operations. I'm going to try not to read word for word from the slides, and hopefully these will be shared afterwards. But we try and tailor the course as a workshop format. We've run this on numerous occasions with many groups of people coming through, and actually feel it works very well for a mixed audience, whether that be the jack-up barge owners and operators themselves, all the way through to the project managers, who in some cases have had administrative teams or administrative assistants on the course as well, to improve their awareness to support the projects they're working on. We've played with sort of a 2 or 3 day format. You can hear my cat joining in, and I think the content works well with 2 days. 2.5 days affords a bit more flexibility, but probably going forward we're going to try and target a 2-day course. There's initial discussions around running one in September, and that's yet to be planned as to whether it's in person or virtual. We've done both, so that's really not a problem. And I guess the last sentence is really key to this. It's not teaching people how to operate a barge. That's addressed elsewhere, and we've heard from our colleagues already talking about that. So it is designed to improve awareness and improve an understanding. So a brief agenda, a brief outline of what you might expect. Ian has supported this through many years, and we give a brief run through of the necessary frameworks in which the industry expects us to work within, what those best practices and really the guidelines that we have to try and work within cover, and then into the sort of meat of the topic. What are the risks associated with operating jack-up barges, What are the risks associated with maybe moving from a nearshore operation to further offshore, and what the challenges might be, and around the different stages of those risks and how to address them. The key ones that we've seen in recent years are obviously going on to location and then coming off location again. We, as an industry, it's grown very well with regards to that sort of storm survival capability. That was the initial industry risk, and as an industry we've learned from that and grown up, and the answer is there are very few jackups lost to big storm events, hurricanes aside, in the Gulf of Mexico, but very few assets that fall over when they're elevated to an air gap during a big storm event. So that's good. That means the industry's doing what it should be doing, and operators are likewise following the necessary requirements. Sophie, next slide, please. During the course, during the workshop, we have unfortunately we have quite a good supply of images, accidents, case studies where things have gone wrong. So we discussed those openly during the workshop, during the course, to try and really identify what the risks were, what went wrong, to improve people's mindset awareness and really put some ticks into boxes as to what people should be doing and why those industry requirements and regulations are really there. Yes, there are some fairly stringent hoops that we have to jump through, and throughout the course we discuss what those are and why they're there and the background to them. Unfortunately, operating smaller assets is IJUBOA's sort of main focus, main audience. We see many recent accidents that have come about. So the sea worker on the left was around a off-project move where she was caught out in bad weather, and the lift boat incident on the right was a ground condition failure. This one's taken from Gulf of Mexico, but it's analogous to an operator going on to location, not really knowing anything about that site and trying to do something within the planning methods and that methodology we would fully encourage in being in place. So hopefully these people say a picture tells a thousand words. These are all good examples, and they're all examples that could have been avoided, could have been preempted. I guess a mainstay of the course is really about the foundations. It's one of the key risk areas nowadays that we see with operating assets that rely on those ground conditions. We move an asset to a location and elevate clear of the water. So we need to make sure that we're on a stable condition. So we do go into, we don't pretend to avoid this. We go into quite some detail from the basics upward, and depending on the attendees and what they're trying to get out of the course, we'll raise that bar to the level that is needed. So it is relatively foundations heavy. People aren't going to walk away being a geotechnical engineer, but the intent is people walk away with a full appreciation of why the ground conditions are important, why we need site surveys, why we need to understand what we're standing on. So some interesting pictures here of footprints and bathymetry and debris. The last one, I think, for me, is about moving assets. So this is a new addition. We've, like I say, we try and keep the course relevant and up to date. So top right just gives a marine traffic plot, a marine density traffic plot, where we're working in generally shallow-ish waters, generally in Europe, obviously moving further afield nowadays. We're in a very busy area. If something goes wrong with our asset or there's a hiccup, then there is a risk to our asset from other vessels, and likewise our asset becomes a risk to other vessels very quickly. What the series of plots across the bottom are showing was actually a move we were involved in this time last year, where somebody thought at the tail end of April the weather is likely to be fine, and we're moving an asset from Europe all the way round the southwest tip up into the Irish Sea, and they had no contingency plans. So we became aware of this very late in the day and supported them very quickly, getting a couple of contingency locations in place. And the plots show the timeline. They departed on the 24th and with a fine weather forecast and good conditions. And by the time we get 3 days into that voyage, they're challenged with 5 to 6 meter significant wave height. So that's about a 10 meter maximum wave height. Very, very rough seas. Fortunately, they weren't caught out. They had a sheltered location supported by us and had to sit that weather out. So it's largely about planning and your contingency plans. And this is quite a good one we showcase as a recent example where those plans hadn't been in place. They were quickly identified from a risk assessment and quickly put in place to be able to support that operation. Sophie, I think that's the last one from me, isn't it? I think the agenda's on the next slide up.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly flick on to the syllabus of the course, which some of you may have seen already. And Nick, I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words around this.
Yeah, well, I think what I'd like to say is really, you can see the syllabus of the course, and Mark, feel free to jump in here, but I mean, it's not rigid. There are elements that we can introduce to the course. I think we can tailor and to a bespoke course but to do that we need feedback from the members on what they would like to see. So for me, I'm very keen on emergency response and would like to see that in the course. Geotechnical obviously assessments are absolutely vital, as is the jacked up floating stability, but the whole point of IJUBOA and providing information is it needs to be as relevant as possible for the industry. So I think it's very much about feedback on that and developing it with a group or a larger group, depending on how many is going on the courses, to making sure that the content is right. This is probably quite a recent course content, Mark, is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. You've hit the nail on the head. So in previous years, we've run bespoke courses for certain customers or clients who wanted a course put on specifically for their team. And we've therefore been able to tailor examples to their assets and make it more relevant to that company. It works equally well with lots of organisations because they bring in lots of different things their units are doing, and it's a good open discussion around customer A doing something and customer B not being aware of it, and likewise customer B had challenges doing something else that customer A hasn't done yet but could well be looking at in the future.
And I think in terms of with the companies involved, pre-contract and post-contract, I mean, it's as relevant for the pre-contract teams as it is the post-contract and the delivery teams. And those, it may be that you tailor a course a bit more pre-contract or a bit more operational, depending on what companies want. But it's all about feedback on these subjects, really, for us to get it right as an organisation, to give our members, our corporate members, maximum satisfaction out of this. So yeah, thanks for that, Mark. That's really promising. And as I say, it's stood the test of time. It's been going on well over 12 years now, of course. So great to see. So that brings us timing-wise towards the end of, well, certainly to the end of our presentations. We thank you for your time on this. Questions, we have plenty of time, but I'm quite pleased to say that we've got through this in good time. So I know your time's valuable for going off and doing other things. But could I, before I sum up, could I ask for questions from the floor, please? Can you see any hands?
Not moving.
What does a yellow hand look like?
Not so much
Yes.
a question, Nick, more a statement. I'm obviously very impressed with the information you've given today from all your speakers. I think it would be hugely useful to move forward, especially with the DNV course, because as you know, I deal with Nick's mainly designing temporary works and things like that on his jack-ups, but the operation of the jack-ups would be hugely useful in my field alone, just to understand, you know, about leg penetrations and that. We're dealing with geotechnics, but to look at it in light of the of operating the barge, that would be hugely useful, I think, to anyone involved in the side issues of temporary works, piling and erecting pile gates and what have you. I think it's been very useful. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Just to, I suppose as a matter of housekeeping, if when you ask a question, perhaps you would just introduce yourself.
No, sorry. Yes.
Bob, yeah. So Bob Leeds is.
Robert Leeds, structural engineer. I work for Nick quite a lot on, and quite keen in becoming a corporate member of the of IJUBOA.
Thanks, Bob. And I know you sat with me actually the course in 2011 that we did together with Fugro in Falmouth, didn't you? And so you can see what was delivered that day by Julian Osborne, I believe, and perhaps Chris Mallet on that occasion. But you can see how, you know, your request there for more operational. You know, I would like to say that as IJUBOA, yes, we can cater for that, and we put you in a group that wanted more operational experience for that. So that's great. Thanks, Bob. Next question.
I think there's a question from Ryan Rogan.
Yes, thanks, Sophie. Ryan Rogan, contracts manager for Farron's Construction. Again, similar to what Robert was saying, very beneficial and great presentation. I suppose just from a contractor point of view, I would just like to ask, do you see if there's benefit in contractors like ourselves becoming members of IJUBOA? We do a lot of work with, you know, different barge companies up and down the length of the UK and Ireland, and just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Sorry, I missed it. It cut out, Ryan, just at the critical minute there. Could you just repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. Bad line at my end, sorry. I suppose from a contractor point of view, do you see benefits for joining IJUBOA? You know, we do a lot of work up and down the country.
Yeah, we very much do, because it gives you access to it's certainly in terms of the Blue Book and the app, it gives you access to all the experience that's logged there. So what's relevant to your projects. It equally gives you access to the company's accreditation. So at what level are these companies working at, and which companies are members of IJUBOA and which aren't. So there's some good information there. It gives you lots of signposting, you know, so that if you want, you've got documents to review that are very technical regarding jack-ups, then, you know, if someone within Farron's was going to do that, then happy days. Or if you wanted to go outhouse to that, we can signpost you to where to do that. I think that the manager's course in particular, you know, for me, that's a really valuable course, and getting the right tailored course there for Farron's and what they want to achieve from it. I think, you know, and you know, as a bit of a sales point, just on the discount you'll get as members on the manager's course, that probably best for a couple of people would best pay your membership for the year. So I think, you know, it really is about companies like yours, Ryan, Farron's, that we want this, that we've developed this corporate member class, as well as the specialist companies such as the drilling companies that will be working from the jack-ups or demolition companies, shall we say, and very much the consulting engineers that, you know, as Bob said previously, they're a huge part of this in terms of, you know, budgets that they put together and technical guidance and help that they want early days on these projects. So yes, I really do see it. We're aiming it at companies like yourselves. Yeah. to give maximum information to.
Just to add to that, Nick, as Mark had said previously, Ian O'Connor, IJUBOA, by the way, we can tailor the courses and have run the courses in-house for larger companies if that's needed. If there's a particular subject area that you want to focus on, we can also do that. We can also take the particular modules in the manager's course. Let's say, for example, with Robert's question with the geotechnical, we can take that particular module, expand that module out and present that as a separate course in-house. And we could also use, if you have any particular forms, formats or approaches that you have, we can fit those in as well. So we are quite focused in being able to fit your requirements when it comes to that particular training requirement. And I think it's quite important here that the manager's course itself, although we do have managers within the operational teams of the jack-up barge companies attending, don't lose focus. This course is a real benefit to the landside managers, the principal contractors, the main contractors out there, and the consultants and the clients. They have this piece of kit turning up that can do so much, but also has its own unique hazards that need to be controlled. The heads up with the course does actually give you a great input and understanding of what to look for and what to consider when you are thinking of bringing a jack-up onto your project. So the course is very, very useful to people that don't have a lot of experience with jack-ups or some experience with jack-ups when they're going onto a project.
That's it.
I think we've got a question from Jamie now.
Hi, Sophie. Yeah, great presentation. Jamie Howard, project manager for Apca Marine. Great presentation. Thanks very much, Sophie and Nick. It was really good, and obviously the speakers as well. Great. I guess my question would be for the forum for when would be the next manager's course. I'm actually a lot of colleagues, past and present, have been asking that question. So whether it would be remotely based during the current climate, or when the next physical courses would be planned.
Mark, do you want to answer that? Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, we're in early discussions with a course date, sort of mid-September. But obviously, depending on numbers, the course needs viable for IJUBOA to run. But yeah, with sufficient numbers, hopefully mid-September. We're looking at the second or third full week in September. So really that mid-September window, either in our offices in South Bank, London, or virtually online. Like Nick has said, if there's sufficient uptake, we'll gladly go to any customer or client venue to run the course in-house for anybody, or make it bespoke, tailored to anyone's particular needs.
Mark, if the course was if the course wasn't to be held in person at the South Bank and it was to be remote on Teams, could we do it earlier than September? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yes, no reason why not, subject to availability. The benefit of going virtual, taking it online, is depending on availability and obviously attendee requests. We have the option of splitting some of the modules out and running it over a longer time frame, if that's preferred. Or alternatively, we can just do exactly the same again, keep the same format, and do it back to back over 2 days.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, thank you. Well noted, obviously.
Okay, any further questions from anyone?
Okay, well, thanks for that. Again, I thank you for your time. I know it's valuable, and hopefully we've given you a little bit of time back from this. I think feedback is massively important to us, so we'll send out a brief email form, if you don't mind. Seeking guidance on industry topics that you might want to talk about at our forum in in September. Equally, we would like to get feedback on the course and whether you're interested in putting any of your people onto the course, and if so, again, directions of that course and perhaps things that you want to focus on, so that we can perhaps split it into the right groups. But it just really leaves me to thank the team, thank the committee, thank our guest speakers, and thank you guys for all taking time to join. We are looking to you to join as corporate members to really help us raise both the cultural and health and safety bar, certainly in the nearshore and possibly into the offshore for IJUBOA. So thanks again for your time, and we look forward to corresponding with you shortly. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Sophie. Catch up soon.